Hi, I'm Sydney, and today I'm going to be talking about Hulu's The Act, Episode 6, A Whole New World. Warning, this whole episode's going to be spoilers, so if you haven't seen it yet, go check it out. I'm so relieved that this episode started with the murder, just because there's been so much build up to it. I also think that they did it in a really tasteful way without being too unnecessarily violent or graphic, which is good. This episode weaves through the emotions of reality sinking in for Gypsy, as well as her coming to terms with the consequences of what they've done. When Gypsy and Nick first leave the home and they're in the cab, they look so happy and she just seems so relieved and finding that freedom, but you see that first hint of disappointment when they arrive at the motel and she sees the room and it's just a mess. But she just kind of dismisses it though, and she just keeps going on with the fantasy of it, and I think they're just at this point still living off the high and the adrenaline of it all, and so they go into their role playing, and to me it kind of just felt like watching two kids pretending to be grown-ups. Yeah, they really just clearly don't know what they're doing, and for example, they decide that they're gonna mail the murder weapon to themselves for when they arrive in Wisconsin. So their plan is to go to Wisconsin where Nick's family is, and when Nick is describing Wisconsin to Gypsy too, it just sounds so boring, which is another disappointment for her. Gypsy at this point has a ton of anxiety and paranoia, and she's taking these pills to compensate for that and try to relieve that, and she's trying to get Nick to take them as well, but when he will not take those pills, she's really irritated. This is a really big moment where she's realizing that the fantasy is all a lie. He's not going to do everything that she's going to do, and they're not fully in it together in her eyes. Gypsy ends up confronting Nick and just having a bit of a breakdown, saying that he needs to fix things and he needs to get it together, and he does in a very weirdly sweet way come through for her in that moment, just reassuring her that he's not going to go anywhere, he's never going to leave her, and that he loves her. At this point, they're honestly just kind of a mess, and it's no wonder that we know that they get caught because they just don't know what they're doing. Now, the major structure of this episode was interesting because we were flashing back real-time post-murder following Gypsy and Nick after the murder, and then we were also brought into the past at the time of Gypsy's birth with Dee Dee. And in this episode, we're given like kind of a backstory as to how Dee Dee was possibly led to her Munchausen by proxy. And while Dee Dee for the most part has been just a huge piece of trash in this whole entire series, we're introduced to a new antagonist who is Dee Dee's mom, Emma. Emma is actually the worst. The moment that Gypsy's born, Emma practically strips her from Dee Dee. She's constantly insinuating that Dee Dee's a horrible mother and that she's an inadequate mom. Emma is super possessive over Gypsy as well, and it kind of makes sense why Dee Dee is constantly trying to prove that she can take care of Gypsy. A moment that was really striking for me was when Dee Dee gives baby Gypsy extra cough syrup medicine that's unnecessary as a way of feeling like she's in control and she's taking care of her baby. To me, that read as the first abuse in a way that's related to Munchausen by proxy. In this episode too, they created new dynamics with Dee Dee that almost, it felt like they were trying to make me feel sympathy for her in a way, just because her mom is such a biatch. There are two other pretty pivotal points in this episode, one being when Dee Dee is sentenced to serve some time in jail after defrauding checks. This is referenced earlier in the season when Gypsy's trying to guilt trip Gypsy into signing over the guardianship papers. The other important moment is when Emma gets sick and dies. Now, when a parent is dying, it's often a time for reconciliation, tying up loose ends, and just grasping on to the love that is left there. But not for Emma. Emma ends up telling her daughter Dee Dee on her practically deathbed that Dee Dee made it impossible to love her and that Gypsy was better off with her. Like, damn, that is so harsh. Yeah. So Dee Dee feels like she has to prove to the world that she is a mom who loves her daughter. Another powerful moment for me though was seeing Gypsy in a wheelchair for the very first time after she fell off a trampoline and got hurt. The way it was filmed, it was a little too self-aware though, and honestly the child actor, when she was sitting in the chair, it didn't feel organic to me. I was like, that's not what a kid would do sitting in a wheelchair. Like, I don't know, I feel like in a more honest approach, I feel like a kid would be like, whatever, or like, ooh, cool, I don't know. I feel like kids like wheelchairs or something. But in retrospect, knowing what that chair represents is really, really powerful. Finally, the episode wraps up with Gypsy and Nick leaving on a bus away from Springfield. Okay, so this is actually the first episode that I truly did not like. Here are just a few of the reasons why. I felt like the whole episode was trying to give an excuse or a reason as to why Dee Dee is the way she is and why she has Munchausen by proxy. It felt like, oh, but look how she was treated, like I feel bad for her now. And I understand that there are cycles in family and like the way that you are treated is going to influence you, but in no way is that an excuse for the abuse that she inflicted upon Gypsy and for her mental disorder. At the end of the day, it's just not an excuse for me. I was also really disappointed that the dad still, I've just come to the terms that they're never gonna bring up the dad, because if it was going to happen, I feel like this is the episode it would have come up. I also saw some of the worst acting that I'd seen on TV in a really long time. There's the one scene they're at the motel and Gypsy goes to the vending machine and there's a mother and daughter standing there. Oh my god, it was so bad. Like that little girl saying, Mom, Mommy. Oh my god. That was just so horrible.
It was just bad. So bad. It was so bad.
Lastly, here's some news that I was made aware of recently. Gypsy recently released a statement asking for any supporters to basically send a letter to the Missouri governor asking for her early release. So if you're interested in that, you can look that up. More on topic, she also released a statement about the act. Here is the statement from Gypsy. She says, I am unable to watch the act, however, I feel it is very unfair and unprofessional that producers and co-producer Michelle Dean has used my actual name and story without my consent and the life rights to do so. Therefore, there will be legal action taken against the show's creators. I want to share my story and bring awareness about Munchausen by proxy in the hopes that I can encourage those who might be experiencing abuse to speak up, because someone will listen. No child should ever be abused, especially from their parent. I will put a link in the description to that article where her statement is released. I have a lot of thoughts about that and about this series being made, but I feel like I'm not at a place where I can even fully articulate it, so maybe eventually I'll make a video on that. But I believe that if she were to see the act, she would probably be really disappointed in how they are representing her and her experiences. Go watch the act on Hulu. New episodes are streaming every Wednesday. If you liked this video, you can subscribe for more content, or you can do whatever you want.